Oh, my lands, welcome to another episode of Raising Private Money. I'm Jay Connor, the Private Money Authority, and my guest today has got an amazing story. He's been a dear friend for a number of years. And I tell you, in addition to private money, I mean, he's raised millions in private money. And what's really, really interesting about my guest is he's going to talk about how he has open houses in his rehab projects, invites potential private lenders into the open house and raises private money right there on the spot in his open house. Well, even before he got involved in private money, for years, he's been specializing in buying properties with bad titles. Yeah, I named him the doctor of bad titles, right? And so, whether the properties are owned by heirs and they just don't know what to do with them, or some of these properties that he specializes in being able to take control of and buy, they've got liens and judgments, and the owner doesn't think that they can sell the property at all because of these liens and judgments. He knows how to discount these judgments, make them go away. He also works a lot with abandoned properties and like really turning communities around. He knows how to fix pretty much any title issue that there is, that exists. Anyway, he's from Charlotte, North Carolina, and he's got experience in living in Mexico while running his North Carolina real estate investing business virtually all the way from Mexico. So from private money to bad titles to abandoned properties to the gamut of private money. It's my pleasure. I'm so excited to have right here, right now on the show today with me, my friend and mastermind member, Joe Myers. Hello, Joe, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Jay. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here, Joe. And you're not in Mexico. You're in Charlotte today, right?
Yeah, I'm back here, but the rest of my family's still in Mexico. I'll be joining. They'll be coming back here permanently in about 2 weeks. So glad to
There you
have them
go.
back.
Well, I know you got a ton. I know you got a ton of experience in private money and raising private money. But before we talk about that, let's make sure we're all on the same page as to what the definition of private money is. So, Joe, what is a private lender?
A private lender is someone that has investment capital or retirement funds that they're looking to lend out in real estate deals to get a safe and secure rate of return. And I fund the majority of my deals with private money. I made a list of all the deals I've done ever over the past 12 years or so, and about 75% of them were funded with private money.
Nice, very nice. So, are you saying that the majority of the deals you've done would not have happened without private money?
Yeah, probably wouldn't have happened without having
Yeah.
private money.
So, what did Joe Myers' life and real estate investing business look like prior to private money?
I didn't do as many deals, that's for sure. But it's kind of, as you get into any new venture, and especially with real estate investing, you go out there and you try and figure it out, and you try and figure out how to do things and discover new things and new strategies and ways to do things. Um, I mean, like most people, start wholesaling, then kind of get into rehabs, and um, about the end of 2019, my business was starting to explode because I had discovered about this bad title stuff, and it was, you could get into properties for pretty cheap and just take on the title issues and take those down. But at the time, I had 2 or 3 rehabs, and I was primarily funding those. I would try and take them subject to if I could, to where you take over the mortgage, the existing mortgage payment, and then I was using my own money on top of that to do the rehab. And if you're doing like 1 or 2 of those, you can kind of make that work. But if you're doing like, I think at the height, I was doing like 7 or 8 rehabs at the same time, and you run out of your own money quickly doing that. And I had like one or two lenders, but they were like, they wanted to charge like really, really high interest rate. And they also wanted a percentage of the deal. And at the end of the day, after I pretty much did all the work, I didn't have much left over to show from it. So I started looking to learn how to raise private money. And that's what brought me back to you, Jay. So since then,
I hear you.
over $2 million. So doing the steps and doing your program. So that's definitely.
So what was it that got you, in other words, what was it that happened that got you to start even looking for private money and got you into private money? I mean, something happened, something shifted.
I was working with a group of guys, so kind of going back to the bad title stuff. At the time this happened, it was like around 2016. I got into a deal. No, I started doing your pre-foreclosure tracking system in 2016. So I was going down to the courthouse a lot, and I discovered like all this kind of like bad title stuff. So I was bidding on like HOA foreclosures and second lien foreclosures. And this group of guys that was doing this more creative stuff saw what I was doing. I was kind of an unknown character in my market at that time. And, they invited me out to lunch. We sat down and they essentially headhunted me to come work with them. So in that group, there's me, Carl, and Mitch. Mitch was the money guy. But he was also he's kind of a mentor. He'd been doing this for so many years, and he would be the lender. So I worked with them, did a lot of deals with them, learned a lot from them. Also contributed quite a bit from what I had learned in the foreclosure world. But right at the beginning of COVID, Mitch decided he wanted to retire. He was kind of done with things, and he thought COVID would go a lot worse for real estate than it ended up doing. So he wasn't really interested in lending anymore. He started to get really, really particular about what he would lend on. So I started looking for other lenders. That's what kind of set me down that path of looking to raise more private money.
So we're talking private money, but we're not talking hard money. What's the difference between private money and hard money?
Yeah, in a lot of the forums and I run a Facebook group here in Charlotte locally that has over 12,000 members on it, and I see people posting all the time that they're looking for private money or they're looking for hard money, and they get the terms mixed up quite often. Hard money is it's more of an institutional type lender, where if you're looking for if you're trying to get a loan on a house, and most people, the first thing they think is, oh, I got to go to the bank. Well, banks won't lend on property that's not habitable, meaning that someone can move in and live in it right now. And most of the properties we work with are not habitable at all. Like we have to get in there and we have to do rehab to get them to where they're livable and nice retail priced houses. So the next thing that people might look for is a hard money lender, which is, like I said, is institutional type lender. They'll lend on properties that are not habitable, that investors buy to fix up, to either rent or to sell retail or whatever else they're going to do with it. But they're an institution. They have set lending guidelines and application process and all that. Private money is it's just a relationship that a real estate investor like myself has with an individual that they have retirement funds in a self-directed IRA, or they have investment capital that they want to lend out. It's a one-on-one relationship. I go out and I teach people how to do this, and they come back to me and want to be a part of my program, my private lending program. So hard money versus private money. Hard money is institutional lender essentially, and private lender is a one-on-one relationship where I'm borrowing money directly from another individual from their retirement account or their investment capital.
What do you like about private money versus hard money?
Everything.
For example,
I've done 2 hard money loans, and it's not an enjoyable experience. They take, I don't care what they promote that they say that they can close. they're doing the whole gamut. You have to do a big application. You got to send them all your financials. Sometimes they check your credit. You do application. You have to do. They usually do an appraisal, and even when they give you the loan, they're not giving you 100% of the money to like do the rehab. So they'll give you probably 80, 90. You might find 100% of purchase price. But when you're actually going in there to do the rehab, you're actually spending your own money to the rehab, and then they'll reimburse you what you already spent. Maybe. If they determine that you spent too much on a certain thing, they'll just decide not to give you that money. So it's like, you're always kind of like on the edge when you're working with hard money lender. Whereas private lender, you work out the terms directly with the lender. So the terms, they're usually funding purchase plus rehab cost at the beginning. So I go to closing to purchase a property and walk away with the rehab money I need to do the rehab. So if we need to modify the terms of the agreement, it's as easy as having a phone call, or I've even done it via text based on how the lender prefers to be communicated with. So it's just a lot easier to make things work between myself and the lender using private money versus hard money.
So what I'm hearing you say, in the world of private money, the private lender is funding all the deal up front. I'm also hearing you say they're funding all the rehab up front. I'm also hearing you say that perhaps it helps you with cash flow, etc. And I'll tell you, I've got some fantastic friends that are in the space of hard money. And here's what I say establish as many relationships as you can with people, whether it's hard money lenders, whether it's private money lenders. So for years, Joe, you didn't have any hard money. You didn't have any private money, any of that. You were, doing terms deals. So my question is, how did it feel when you were actually able to break through and finally realize that private money was the thing you were missing in your business? How did that feel? How did it change your business?
My business exploded right around the same time that I started raising money from more than the one or two people that I had. Prior to 2019, I think I had one non-family member lender. Of course, when you're looking for money, the first people you tend to turn to are friends and family, your war market, as you call it. But once I started doing the steps to raise more money and have relationships with other private lenders, my business definitely exploded. I actually have raised more money than I can even put into deals right now. So it's a nice place to be, as opposed to just trying to scramble around and look for money. You get a deal. Most people they'll get the deal first, and then they're like, okay, well, how do I fund this? Where I know that you teach, get the money first, and then when you get the deal, it's like easy to put them together. So,
so are you saying you'd much rather have more money than you can use than having deals under contract and no way to fund them?
Yeah. I remember a Robert Kiyosaki quote. He said, "Everyone has a money problem. Some people don't have enough money, and some people have too much money, but everyone has money problems." So,
well, I like the second problem better. How about you?
Yeah. Whereas before, sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
Well, we were talking about, it's a good problem to have more money, sitting on the shelf than you can actually use versus having this great deal that you want to fund and you don't have any funding for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So where do you find these private lenders, Joe?
Friends and family and anyone that's interested in it. I do your process where you're not like asking for money. You just, to offer to teach people how to get better rates of return. And there's different ways. Doing a webinar is doing the private lender luncheon, which I do a dinner event instead of the luncheon. I've had much more success with that, getting people to come to that, because Charlotte's kind of a big place to be driving across for lunch. And I also do those investor open houses after I complete a rehab. I do an open house to show off the quality of our work and kind of talk about the process and what happened during the rehab. And
yeah, well, tell us more about that. How do you go about having a successful, you call it an investor open house?
Well,
What do you mean by that, and how does that work?
I stopped calling it that. People just have a kind of open house kind of connotation is like, if you're going to open house, it's like people feel like you're trying to sell them something, and I'm not really trying to sell anyone anything. So when I put together the event pages for those, I stopped calling them an investor open house. I call them a rehab house party now. But it's pretty much, I'm just inviting anyone that's interested in seeing what we do. I mean, a lot of people are interested in real estate. I post on Facebook quite a bit, the projects we're working on and the progress we're making on them, both good and bad. Recently, we had a house that was like literally a week from being done, and the HVAC guys forgot to connect the condensation line to the pan. And when they turned it on and walked away and left, it leaked through the ceiling and like destroyed the ceiling, and we had to go back, caused a 2-week delay in that project timeline. But I post a lot of stuff, and it's one thing for people to see what you're doing, see pictures of it, see you talk about it. It's another thing for them to see it in person. So that's kind of the idea behind the rehab house parties. So I just, when the project is done, we have an event. The house is usually under contract to be sold at that point. We're in due diligence. The house is still mine to do with what I want, of course. So I invite anyone that's interested in coming to see the house, friends and families, my current lenders. I invite my contractors, because the contractor thing is like, I tell them I'm going to do that beforehand. So, I mean, I always expect them to do their best work, but if they know that people are going to like see their work in person, like other than, the project management team or the buyer or people interested in buying it, they might be more likely to do a better job for us. So just pretty much invite anyone that's interested in coming and see the house in person. I get a lot of people come that I don't get a lot of interaction with in general. I invite anyone that's interested in coming. I put it on my personal Facebook page and say, if you can see this, you're welcome to come. I have I have food and drinks. I used to print these 18 by 24 boards, and I had these tripods that I would put around the house that had the before pictures in them. So they could see the before picture there on the tripod, and they could see the after there in person. What I do now for that, printing those boards is quite expensive. So what I do now is I always put a TV mount in the houses, in the rehab houses, and I'll put a TV there for staging purposes. And then I'll put a like a slideshow on the TV showing like before and during pictures and after pictures of the rehab and of that particular rehab. So people can see what it looked like before and see the difference. And, most of my houses, I think I'm doing a lot more extensive rehab than most investors would. I mean, not to say that I wouldn't like to get the easy rehabs, because easy rehabs are nice, but I mean, most of our houses, we're tearing them down to the studs and rebuilding from scratch. So it's quite a big difference. But to see that in person, it's such a huge thing. I mean, both the Facebook posts and those parties are to show that I'm real. I really do what I say that I do. You can come and see the quality in person. So I do it as a thank you to my team, my contractors, my lenders. I've had many of my current lenders come out to those, and I've had people that I've never met before in my life that were friends on Facebook somehow come to them. And I had this lady recently that she came to 2 of them, and I had one in March and I had one last month at another house. And she came to the one in March, and my mother, who is also my accountant, was at the event helping me put on the event, take care of the food and whatnot. And this lady had talked to my mom quite extensively in March, and when she came again last month, she was asking where she was at um, for that one. But she came to the second one again. I didn't know her from anywhere else other than that she came to the one in March, and afterwards she just came up to me and was like, I got some money sitting around. Let's sit down and talk about how to do this. And we scheduled a one-on-one the next week. And we scheduled an hour to talk, and we ended up being there for 4 hours across 2 different restaurants. So I raised another 70,000 from that, that series of events. And like I said, she wasn't even warm market. She just saw an event page and decided to come see one of my rehabs, and I got a lender out of it.
So let's see here. You were with her for 4 hours. You raised $70,000 after that 4-hour visit. That sounds to be something like $17,500 per hour worth of your time. So I guess $17,500 an hour was worth you spending time with her, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I love sitting down with like-minded individuals anytime, whether they want to be a lender or not. So.
Right. Now you dropped a golden nugget a few minutes ago that I want to make sure that nobody missed. And you said you tell your general contractor that you're going to be having an open house when this house is finished and it's ready to be staged, ready to be sold. And you're going to be inviting a lot of people to come to the open house. And what kind of effect do you think that has on the general contractor's job that he does on that house?
In general, it makes them want to do a better job. I mean, even though it shouldn't, it definitely has an effect on their psyche. I mean, I tell them that they can come. I tell them that if they want to invite anyone from their network to come see the job that they did on the property, it definitely has an effect on them, especially if they've come to multiple events.
Now, what do you call them now? You don't call them investor open houses. You call them what?
Rehab house party. It's
rehab
party. It's more of a party than an open house. I mean, it's a networking party. Is essentially what it is.
A rehab. What'd you call it? A rehab what?
House party.
Rehab house party. I love that. I mean, who doesn't like coming to a party? What do you put on in your social media, your Facebook, your Instagram, your whatever? What do you put in the post to get people interested to come?
Oh, to the event? I mean, I put together an event, like a Facebook event page. I put like before and after. I put the after pictures there, and I just invite anyone that what I think might be interested. But then I'll also share that event to my page publicly, and invite anyone that I might come up on their feed. I put in there, like, if you see this, you're welcome to come. Like it's not invite only.
Right. Now at the rehab house party, what do you do? I mean, you got food, you got drink, but what happens at the rehab house party?
So I believe this was your idea. We have a registration table, and the reason that they're registering is that we do a $100 Amazon gift card giveaway about an hour and a half after the event starts. So they come, they register, come in, and my project manager loves these things because he's just a social butterfly. Like he loves showing off his work for sure. He'll talk to anyone. So I have a lot of my team members that are there helping me with the event will also help engage people and get them talking, and especially if they don't know each other and whatnot. So people come in, they talk, they probably know other people there, meet other investors that are in my network. Like I said, we'll have a buffet style table set up in the kitchen. I mean, it's a working kitchen now. We completed the rehab. I also have the very first one we did a taco bar. So it was like full dinner, and then the house was big enough that we bought tables and chairs, like folding tables and chairs. I felt like that was a little too much. Like, I don't think people came expecting to eat, so they didn't really eat that much. I remember you told us not to run out of food, and we certainly did not run out of food. We had like way way too much left
But you
over.
ate tacos for a while after the rehab house party.
Oh yeah, yeah. Me and a bunch of other people too. Uh, so now it's more. I feel like the sitting down tables are too much. If we happen to be staging the house, I mean that's the best thing to have is if someone else is staging the house for you, then you have all the furniture so people can converse and sit down and talk. What I do now is if the house isn't being staged, I have my open, oh, it's not open house anymore. I have my house party equipment out in my shed. So I have every time I do one of these, it's funny. I'll buy something new for it. So the one that I did in March, I bought some high top cocktail tables, so people could especially in tighter spaces, people could sit around and still set their drink on something and talk. But yeah, there's food and drinks. Put drinks in the fridge. We have a beverage bucket at kid height with non-alcoholic stuff for kids. I have the TV on the wall that is playing a slideshow of before and during pictures, because it's pretty impressive the changes that we make to these houses since we're pretty much ripping them down and rebuilding from scratch. And then about an hour and 15 minutes into it, I'll do a speech where it's pretty much just talking about the story with the house, how we bought it, anything interesting or funny or sad that might have happened at the rehab. We had the one that we did in March, the house was already sold, it was under contract. It was about I don't remember if we had passed the final inspection yet or not, but the house was completely done. And someone took it upon themselves to break into the house and try and steal our fridge. And they dragged it across our hardwoods to the front door. And then they couldn't get it out. And then they dragged it to the back. They couldn't get it down the hallway to the back door. So stuff like that, stuff that really happened. It's all just to show I'm real and stuff that really happens. And as you know, all sorts of crazy stuff happens in real estate, good and bad. And so I do a speech and talk about it, what happened with it, all that kind of stuff. I thank my team members, anyone that's there specifically, I thank them. And I also thank my private lenders. And, right after that, we do the drawing. I'll usually have someone involved. If there's kids there, I'll have the kids, the youngest kid I can find, do the drawing, pull the thing out. Someone wins a card, and then I say, hey, you're welcome to hang out and network, and you don't have to leave by a specific time, and hang out as long as you want. And that's the time that I get to talk to people.
There you go. Well, Joe, since you started doing business with private money and raising private money, how much private money have you raised?
$2.25 million.
$2.25 million. And you started doing it, what, less than 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went down the path of trying to raise the money. Almost, when was it? Beginning of 2020. I realized that I needed to. I kind of floundered about a bit, and then in the summer of 2020, my wife's cousin came to town, and she wanted to go to the beach. And last minute, and we were looking for a place to stay, going all up and down the North Carolina coast, looking for a place to stay. And the only place we could find that was oceanfront was in Morehead City, North Carolina. So we went there for the weekend, and I remembered it because I'd been to your course in 2016, and I remembered that you're a pretty awesome guy. And I was like, we're in town, so I called your office and I said, can I meet Jay Connor? Can I buy Jay Connor lunch? And went through talked to a couple of people, and then got on the phone with you, and you invited us to the Dune Club there, and we had lunch, and you invited us to the thing you were doing in October, and me and 4 other guys came, and the rest was history, I guess.
Yeah, what's funny is you called to invite me lunch, but I think I took you to lunch.
Yeah, well, but we had lunch at the Dune Club, and I think at the end, you got up to go to the bathroom or something, and I ran to the bartender or something. I was like, let me pay for lunch. And they're like, only members can pay for lunch. We can't even allow you to pay for lunch. But I tried.
Oh, so that's funny. So look, Joe, I got a question for you that that I know you're not expecting, but you'll know the answer. What I want to know is, since you've been in real estate investing, what was the lowest point in your business? And did you ever think about just giving up and just quitting and going back to some 9-to-5 job?
I mean, my first couple of years were kind of slower than I would have liked. I left, I started in real estate in January 2011. And, right, like literally my son was born December 27th, 2010. And I started like January 1st, 2011. Because at the time I was in the restaurant industry, and, people that work in hospitality, work a lot of hours, work on the weekends, work on holidays and in the evenings, and wouldn't really have much of a family life. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the book that kind of opened my eyes to everything. So I left my job and went to do real estate full time in May of 2013. It was kind of slow at first, but we managed. In 2016, I did a deal that it was a subject to deal. And when you go into any kind of deal or any situation, you always, whether you do the deal or not, you always try and help whoever's on the other end of it. And unfortunately, the people you're trying to help don't always have the best intentions when you go into these situations. And I ended up doing this deal, really, really went out of my way to try to help some people. And they were not of the same mindset, and ended up in a lawsuit that ended up lasting over 2.5 years and ended up costing me personally over $100,000. So that was definitely the low point. I didn't really think about giving up. It's just anyone that's been in a lawsuit and you have another option, it's always better to not go to court. Going to court is not fun. Even if you think you're right, it's still not fun.
I was going to ask you, what's the biggest lesson you learned from that experience? If you had to do it all over again, what would you do different?
The biggest thing is don't let the seller stay in the house. That was my biggest thing. The other thing was rushing through the deal, trying to get it done. Like, it was like I met the people like 3 days before we're supposed to go to sale. What I know now about foreclosures, like there wasn't really a hard stop on it. Like we could have still done it without like trying to close on it so quickly. So we rushed through the closing, didn't really pay attention to some red flags and some yellow flags. But the biggest red flag is they like didn't want to move out at all. So like the way that I set that deal up is I let them stay there until they found somewhere else to go. And they just conveniently never found anywhere else to go, even though I found them many, many places they could go. Like, I don't know. There's just people out there that don't always have the best intentions. I call people like that professional victims because they just know how to work the system, and they look for help, but they don't try and help anyone else. So being in litigation is not fun. Not recommended.
Yeah, I always say, and I've experienced when you got a bad situation where you're needing to foreclose or you're needing to evict, it's always cheaper to buy them out and work with them instead of trying to work against them. Joe, we've been talking about private money here on the Raising Money show, and I got a gift I want to give everybody. I've just finished writing my brand new private money guide that will get you on the fast track to private money. It's called 7 Reasons Why Private Money will skyrocket your real estate business and help you build incredible wealth. If you're a newbie, you've never done a real estate deal before, you're a seasoned real estate investor, you're a wholesaler, and you want to stay in some deals, private money is the answer and is the quickest and fastest way to fix your cash flow problems, if you have any, because you always get to bring them a big check. Well, the guide is free. It's called the Private Money Guide. You can get it for free. Just download it at www.jayconner.com/money guide. That's www.jayconner.com/money guide. Download that right now and never miss out on a deal because you didn't have the funding. Joe, before we started the show, you were talking about this deal that you've done that's just sort of outrageous and out of the ordinary. And I want to hear all the details of this deal. So unpack it for us.
Well, this deal took 2.5 years. It's not my longest deal. I have another deal I'm working on that's 4 years and counting now. But this deal was a foreclosure tracking lead. I took your pre-foreclosure tracking system and I put it into Podio, and I'm kind of an engineer-minded person, so I wrote some algorithms on top of it. I hooked into this Zillow API to pull in Zillow data to kind of get valuations on property, and I also wrote a algorithm that would predict the payoff on the property. So with the foreclosure tracking, you can see what's being foreclosed on. And something I do that's a little bit different than the way most people market is I do what's called a preliminary title search. And in the preliminary title search, what I'm looking for is who owns the property and what's owed on it. So as you can see here, this is the preliminary title search for this deal. And in the preliminary title search, I'm seeing, who owns it. Are the owners per deed, are they alive or are they deceased? In this case, they were deceased. And then I can also see it's in foreclosure, obviously, it's foreclosure tracking. And then, and in the algorithm, can you go back a slide, Scott? In my leads, foreclosure tracking. So I know what's owed on it. I know what the payoff is because I wrote this program to figure out what the payoff was. And I also know what the value is based off of a general Zillow value. I know Zillow values aren't 100% accurate, but it's just a good starting point. And I just pretty much took all the properties and I sorted them by how much equity they have. And this was one of the deals that ended up having the most equity at the time that I searched it, at the time that I did this kind of filtering. So one of my mentors that I worked with when I started working with Carl and Mitch, Mitch always told me, don't work everything, just figure out what the best leads are and just go after those really, really hard. And that's pretty much what I was doing here. So sorted by the equity, I saw that it was an estate or heir situation, and there was only one mortgage on it that was originated at $35,000, and that's what was going into foreclosure. So something that we do, especially with these heirs and estate situations, is if a property is in foreclosure, any property that's in foreclosure really, there's some sort of distress going on. It could be financial distress, it could be personal relation distress, or it could be so many different situations, but something's not working. And especially with the heir and estate situation, typically what's not working is the heirs are not getting along, and they're maybe don't have good family relations or whatever the case may be. But that was definitely the case with this one. Can you skip to 2 down, Scott, please? This particular property so it was originally owned by Jerry and Nancy Smith, and they were both deceased. And so we start trying to figure out, well, who owns the property? And who owns the property is the heirs every single time. But who the heir is just depends on the family situation. There's so many different things that go into determining the heir, who the heir is. I have people reach out to me quite often because they know that I'm good at this kind of stuff, and they say, they tell me there's no heirs, and that's not true. There's always an heir. You got to keep going down the line to figure out who the heir is. This particular property had 4 heirs. But again, I made a big mistake on this property, on this deal to begin with, in that I didn't really understand how the heir succession worked in North Carolina. There's a statute called the Intestate Heir Succession Law, and it's just really complicated who it is. But I made a big mistake on this one. I just assumed that if the heir was already dead, already deceased, then they didn't get a share in the property, and it turns out that they do. So we were thinking that just Cynthia and Phyllis were the only heirs, since the other two, I guess, kids of the original owners were already deceased. And that's not true at all. So what we do is one of these heir situations, we go to the heirs individually, and we buy their interest individually. And a lot of times it's a really easy sell. Like in most situations, they don't think they can sell the property at all. They're not getting along with their siblings. They don't know what to do with the property. The property needs work. There might be squatters living in the property. We run across that situation pretty often. It's in foreclosure. Sometimes they don't even know that they own it or how it works in North Carolina. So we go to them individually and we buy their interest individually. So on this deal, we purchased Cynthia's interest in the property. And she told us that she didn't have a good relationship with her sister, Phyllis. And when we talked to Phyllis, we could see why. She was not a nice person. But we still try to make it work. Phyllis was not interested in making it work. So at that point, and then the other two heirs were already deceased at the time that we were talking to them. Can you go to the next slide, Scott, please? So we got Cynthia's interest. I'm working with my partner Brandon on this deal, so I'm kind of more the back end research, figure this stuff out guy, and he's like up front, kind of talking to people about this stuff guy. So we own. There's 4 heirs. One of those siblings that was deceased was not married and didn't have any kids. And in that case, it goes to their parents. The parents were already deceased, so it goes to the siblings. So the remaining 3 siblings got that other heir's interest. So we thought we owned half of it. We actually owned a third of it. The other heirs are not wanting to sell or work with us at all. They said some not nice things to us, which definitely made us think that they didn't want to figure it out. They knew about the foreclosure. They don't want to do anything about it. So now we're sitting there owning a third of this property, and we're like, well, now what do we do? And this is a question that when I tell people that I do this, they're like, well, what happens if you can't get all the interest? And this is what you do. In our case, we had 2 choices. The property was already in foreclosure. We could just wait till the foreclosure finishes. When it goes to sell, North Carolina has this thing called upset period, which means that when it sells at auction, it's not really done being sold at auction. It goes into this upset period thing where people can bid on it. So someone else could come in behind the original winner of the auction, bid 5% more, put down a deposit. Then it goes into another upset period, and this goes on and on and on. Well, what happens is in these foreclosures, what's getting foreclosed on is what's owed to the bank. But if the property ends up selling for more than what's owed to the bank and what's owed any other creditors, that money goes back to the owners of the property when it was sold, and that's called excess proceeds. So one of our options was just wait until the foreclosure finishes, and then we can get our interest of the excess proceeds once it eventually sells at the auction. The problem with this in this particular deal is that COVID happened and the courts were closed. So we originally got the first interest in, I believe, in January of 2020. March of 2020, of course, everything, kind of went crazy. And the courts here closed for like 10 months. So we couldn't get in there at all. And then they would open. It was just like this long period. They'd open, and then people would get COVID, and then they would close again. And then they would eventually they figured out to do all these hearings online. So a lot of the time that this deal took was just us waiting to get into court. So they pretty much canceled the foreclosure process. They put it on hold. They didn't cancel. They put it on hold. So we had another option, just called a partition sale, which with a partition sale, if you want to go to the next slide, we petition to partition, which is pretty much we're requesting the court to make a decision about what to do with this property. And it's just like any other court proceeding. You schedule a hearing. You have to, can you go to the next slide, please? You schedule a hearing. You file for it. Anytime there's a court proceeding where there's unknown heirs, you're not sure who the heirs are, the owners, or anyone involved with the proceeding, the court will appoint a guardian ad litem, which is an attorney who specializes in figuring out who the heirs are. So the court appointed guardian ad litem who does a report that says, here's anyone we know or think may be involved with this proceeding. From there, we schedule a hearing, and then we have to serve all the parties. In North Carolina, so we have to serve everyone that we know is an heir, or we think is an heir, or we think may be involved with it in any case whatsoever. Everyone has to be served. So in North Carolina, when they do service, court service, they go through the sheriff. So you send it to the county where they live, and the sheriff is supposed to serve them. With a proceeding like this, as opposed to foreclosures or evictions, they have to be served personally. So we had 2 out of like all those people on the other list that the sheriffs couldn't find. So we had to hire a process server. After the sheriff couldn't find him, we had to hire a process server. One of them lived in Tennessee up in the mountains. So we had to send someone out there to serve them. And then one of them lived in an RV in the backyard of one of the other heirs, or one of the other parties. So that person was the hardest person to find.
I bet so, Joe. Well, Joe, for the sake of time, I got 2 questions. What was the final outcome of this deal? That's the first question about this deal. What was the final outcome? My second question was, if you knew at the beginning of this deal what you now know, what would you have done differently? If anything.
I don't think we would have done anything different. COVID kind of messed everything up.
So what was the final outcome?
Scott, can you go to number 12? The final outcome was that it gets sold at auction, and then everyone gets paid their interest in the property. So you could see our land trust, we got $41,000. We had about $3,000 in expenses on it, and that was our profit from the deal. COVID really messed everything up. If COVID hadn't happened, or we had done this not around COVID, we probably just would have let it go to the foreclosure auction and not mess with the partition sale. It ended up being a lot more work than I think we signed up for. Mostly just making sure the attorney was doing what they're supposed to do. And there's a lot of delays involved with that. So I can't do anything about COVID. So
right. So when a real estate, so you specialize in bad titles that's got all kind of funky stuff on them. When someone comes across a bad title situation, what do you recommend them do? Try to figure out themselves, hire a real estate attorney, or contact you?
Well, I think the answer to that is contact me. I mean, I asked my attorney is very well versed in this kind of stuff. I learned a lot of this stuff from him when he just sit on Facebook and give free legal advice and talk to me on Facebook Messenger for like 2 years straight. And I think he thought this stuff was really interesting, but most real estate attorneys in particular, don't know about this stuff, don't know about this creative stuff. We're constantly, if we have to work with a new attorney, based on how the deal is structured, then we're constully educating attorneys on
I was going to say, you're having to educate your own attorneys. So here's the bottom line. If you come across a deal that's got bad title, sticky title, weird title, judgments, liens, deceased heirs, all that kind of stuff, Joe Myers is the expert. So Joe, how can people get in contact with you?
Best way is to email me at the email right there on the screen.
So the email for you is Joe, Joe, at communityrenew, RENEW.com. That's Joe, Joe, at communityrenew, RENEW.com. Joe, I tell you what, this is fascinating stuff. If nothing else, we now see why a real estate investor would not want to have to deal with all this detail. That would drive me crazy. You obviously love it. And so when I run into my next title problem, I'm just reaching out to you and say, hey, Joe, fix this for me. So Joe, parting comments. If you had to do it all over again, starting in your real estate investing business, one piece of advice you would tell someone starting out that you've learned in all these years? What would you do different?
Get a good mentor that actually knows what they're doing. That's it. There's no sense to reinvent the wheel. Just do what someone else has done to be successful, to get where you want to be, but also verify that they know what they're doing. There's a lot of people out there that say that they do or pretend that they do, but what was it? Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify.
Exactly. Well, what I say from experience, you're going to pay for your education one way or the other. You're either going to work with a mentor that knows what they're doing, or you're going to get out there and make a mess out of it yourself, and that's going to cost a bunch of money. But Joe, you are the expert in all this title situation. Again, when someone runs across a bad sticky title situation, Joe Myers is the guy. Joe, thank you so much for coming here on Raising Private Money with me and sharing your story.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, Jay. I appreciate it.
All right, man. And it's always a pleasure to be around you. You're an awesome member of our mastermind group, and look forward to getting together again real soon. So thank you, Joe, so much.
Yep, sounds good. I'll see you in October.
All right. There you have it, folks. Another episode of Raising Private Money. I'm Jay Connor, your private money authority and the host of this show. And look, I need your help. The person that you think would really benefit the most from this show, share this show with them. I really appreciate the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the 5-star reviews. And if you happen to be watching us on YouTube, be sure and click and ring that bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. And we are now on Rumble. So if you happen to be watching us on Rumble, be sure and follow as well. With that, look forward to seeing you on the next Raising Private Money show. I'm Jay Connor, wishing you all the best. And here's to seeing you right here on the next show.